We now return to Let's Play Tomb Raider: The Prophecy. Still a little bit of the hand-holding and direction, but we don't actually want to go through there just yet. I'd prefer instead to clear out the wolves. I suppose they're not entirely necessary to deal with. You probably could just go all the way around them. I would say that this level is probably the start of the more complicated puzzles. At least the levels are quite a bit larger from here on out. This game doesn't feature save games, rather it has a password system, and unfortunately the password, didn't realize that one was there, the password only starts you over at the beginning of the level. And that's sort of true of the whole thing. Like, if you die at any point, you start over from the whole level. And you lose pretty much everything. I think the game gives you like 3 small med packs as sort of compensation, but it's better just not to die if you can help it. It's actually kind of unnecessary to go this way. I could just jump straight over onto the ledge below. But better safe than sorry. And there is our first item, which is actually necessary to get out of the level. Well, when I say item, I really mean puzzle item. The game does feature, well, especially later on, the game features puzzles where you have to put things into certain positions to be able to advance. You know, I've always wondered in games like this, or really just any game at all, where you're supposedly in an area that is abandoned, and that's where we need to put the axe, and there's fire going. You also saw those wolves. There's 5 of them. It's a lot. You can take them out one at a time, like I'm going to do here. But yeah, like these fires that are just everywhere. Who lit them? What are they burning? I suppose maybe if there's like natural gas or something? Maybe this is just something like they built this whole tomb on top of it so that the fires would always be burning. I mean, I guess it's one of those things you're not supposed to think about, otherwise it kind of ruins suspension of disbelief. Not that Tomb Raider has ever done that. Alright, this is the first time door. I don't want to hit that just yet, because I'd like to get that med pack. It's not too hard. This is actually a pretty long timer, so it's not too hard to make it there. And really, there's not a lot of room to run, even if you wanted to do the sprinting. And I think that's the end of this level. A room, anyway. And this little area right here has the wolf howls, which is also a nice atmospheric touch, but it indicates that there are wolves around. A lot of them. Start running right into one. There's another little area. You gotta be careful not to get off the ledge. And yet another area where there's going to be a monster as soon as you get right up top, which makes it very difficult to dodge, although you don't have to stay here and kill these. I mean, I could have just run right up this ladder to avoid it completely, but that could be a very bad jump to miss. Plummet all the way down. And again, another completely unnecessary direction. I suppose, you know, if you were completely oblivious and didn't see that and you tried to jump across, you'd wonder how to do it, but it's pretty obvious that's what you gotta do. Although, maybe, you know, the game designers were just sort of giving the player a break. Almost fell to my doom there, and you know, just had those to sort of show you what's ahead so you can prepare for it, but that does lend itself to how easy the game is, because there are situations where it does that, and you know, you're given that heads up, which would otherwise take away some of the surprise. Speaking of surprises. But I suppose later on, as the various areas get more and more complex, the challenge is really just in remembering where you've been and how the map is laid out. And here we go with multiple enemies at the same time. Kinda difficult to get away from that. Just have to make sure they don't lock you into a corner or up against the wall. The wolves, I guess, aren't really so bad, but later enemies can do a heck of a lot of damage. It's best just not to take the hit. Although I will accumulate so many med packs through the course of this game that I guess I don't really need to worry too much about it. And another thing too is that when you complete an area, when you complete a level, it restores all your health. So the actual need for using a med pack isn't as dire, I suppose, as it could be. I do like that there's a separate animation for Lara just pulling down one of those timers. It could just as easily have been the same animation for pushing buttons or whatever. But they actually took the time to give her just that separate little animation for something that's not very frequent in the game. And backtracking like this becomes a pretty prevalent thing throughout as well, where you go through one area to unlock a door way on the other side. Terrible. I like that instead of being completely shocked by the skeleton rising from the dead, all she can say is terrible. They're also very annoying. I hate the skeletons in this game. You actually have to get them in a position where they're sort of in the middle of an attack. You can't snipe them from the corner like I was trying to do there, because for some reason they're completely capable of blocking bullets with their shields. They're just so fast that as soon as you pull the trigger, they can put that shield in the way. So really, I guess it's a better tactic to sort of get up in their face, and as soon as they start swinging, back up and shoot them. The problem is, though, that with the Game Boy Advance resolution, I mean, with Lara, it's pretty easy to see because there's a lot of contrasting colors in her palette. You know, the skin tones in her clothes and all that stuff. But with the skeletons, they're pretty much all sort of a shade of gray, and so the minute little details in their animation are kind of hard to pick out. It's hard to tell when they're ready to swing at you and when they're just, you know, during their normal walk animation. Gotta make sure not to fall off the edge. Again, that was one of those situations where the little prompt didn't show up. So you kind of have to gauge when she's close enough to the edge that she will be safely let down, but that looks like the end of another segment, so I'll see you next time.